In this next video, we're looking at the causes of war between Mark Antony and Octavian. I'm going to recall some of the reasons. I'm going to do one set really in this lesson, do another set in the next lesson. I understand how Octavian used things for propaganda and evaluate the sources in quite a lot of depth today. The keywords that matter here are Octavia, the sister of Octavian, virtue, dignity, perfect, manipulate supporters. These keywords here we'll look at in the next lesson. So, Antony has failed in his attack on Parthia. So why doesn't Octavian just attack him when he's weak to take over the empire in 35 BC? Of course, the answer is politics. Octavian doesn't want to be seen as the bad guy. He doesn't want to be seen as being very ambitious and out for himself and all that sort of business. So he can't just attack Antony. Antony's still got popular. Antony's still, to many people, a great war leader and a friend of Julius Caesar. So he can't just attack him, even though he wants to. So he needs some pretexts. He needs some reasons. He needs to sow the seeds in people's minds that Antony is the enemy. And he starts that by doing that by using his sister Octavia. If you remember, when Mark Antony's second wife, Fulvia, had died, Octavia had got married off to him. So, 53, Plutarch now. Octavia wanted to sell to Antony. Octavian allowed her to go because so that if she were neglected and mistreated, that's why give him a plausible excuse for war. So Plutarch is not one of these complete apologists for Octavian. He's writing much later. He's writing after Octavian Augustus dies. So Octavia arrives in Athens and she gets letters from Antony which told her to remain there. Octavia, although she realised it was an excuse and was upset, nevertheless wrote to Antony to find out where he ordered her to send the supplies that she was bringing with her to him. She had brought a great supply of clothing for his soldiers, she bought some pack animals, she bought money and gifts, and 2,000 elite soldiers. So she's brought all this stuff to him, and he's ordering her to stay away from him in Athens. Cleopatra realised that Octavia was close by and was about to challenge her. Cleopatra was afraid that if she added the pleasure of her company, Octavia's company, to the constant care and concern to Antony, to the dignity of her character, she would become unbeatable and have complete control over her husband. So Cleopatra acts. We'll look at that in a few minutes. Later on in Plutarch, Octavian Caesar considered that Octavia had been treated badly. When she returned from Athens, he ordered her to live in her own house. Leave Mark Antony's house, go and live in your own house. Leave him. But she said she would not leave the house of her husband. She even called on him. She went to see Octavian and asked him, please don't start a war. Ignore the way she'd been treated by him. It would be terrible to hear that one of the two greatest leaders brought to the Romans civil war because of his passion. Her actions supported what she said. She lived in his house as if he were there, Antony's house, that is. She looked after not only her own children, but also those of Fulvia. She looked after Antony's kids by Fulvia with generosity and kindness. She welcomed friends of Antony to her house and looked after them, helped them. However, without any wish to do so, she was harming Antony by her behaviour, because he began to be hated for doing wrong to such a woman. Look at the key words. Perfect, dignity, virtue. Octavia is shown as this perfect Roman woman. She's contrasted hugely with Cleopatra. Let's look at an exam question from Plutarch, from the passage we just looked at. Cleopatra, when she realised Octavia is nearby, pretending to love Antony with a passion. And she didn't eat very much. She allowed herself to waste away, got thin, so she starts to look thin. When Antony was nearby, she would let her eyes fill with tears desire for him. When he went away, she would look faint and ill. She would find ways to be seen crying, and they would quickly wipe away the tears. So she's being portrayed here by Plutarch as trying to manipulate Mark Antony. She realizes Octavia's nearby. She realizes she's the perfect woman. She realizes she can't really compete with her unless she does something drastic. Yeah, she's essentially doing the crazy girlfriend threatening to kill herself routine. So it carries on. She didn't want to know. She wiped her tears as if she wanted him not to notice them. While all this while, Antony was getting ready to go from Syria to join the Median king, i.e. to restart the Parthian war. Her flatterers worked hard on Antony for her. It used to complain that Antony was harsh and cruel and determined to destroy a mistress who was devoted to one man, him alone. They would tell Antony that Octavia had married him for politics and for her brother, and took pleasure in having the name of wife. Cleopatra, on the other hand, queen of so many men, was called Antony's lover, and she did not avoid this name nor think it unworthy of her, as long as it was possible for her to see him and be with him. If he drove her away, she could not bear to live. At last they melted and unmanned Antony so much he was afraid Cleopatra would kill herself, so he went back to Alexandria. Now the question based on this is a 14 marker. In what ways does this passage help us to understand Cleopatra's influence on Mark Antony? 14 marks. The 14 marks is divided up in 3 ways, remember. AR1, knowledge, 4 marks. This is about 35 BC. They've been lovers for several years at this point. They've already got 3 kids. But Mark Antony is married to Octavia, the sister of his big rival Octavian. It's a political marriage, and that's the background. 4 marks. AO2, understanding. Octavia is being portrayed as the perfect Roman woman. She's being portrayed as extremely beautiful and dignified and virtuous and kind and all that stuff. And understanding, if Antony leaves Cleopatra, then she is powerless. She's a client ruler. All her power derives directly from Rome. She has no real independent power. So she is manipulating. In this passage, she is trying to manipulate Antony. And you need to put some quotes in about that. Some of the quotes we've highlighted here. Finally, even though the question doesn't ask you anything about Plutarch and to evaluate the source, they want you. There are 5 marks on offer for AO3, evaluating the source. This is Plutarch. Yeah, this is Plutarch writing. Plutarch's writing much later. He's writing a cautionary tale. He's writing a cautionary tale. He is looking to teach people what not to do in the future. He's showing future Romans how they shouldn't behave. And he's writing a version of history that has been shaped by Octavian, who becomes Augustus. Although Plutarch doesn't directly work for Augustus, because he's writing afterwards, all the documents, all the records that Plutarch will have used to write his book will have been written during the reign of Augustus. And Augustus controlled history very tightly. This version of the story, where Cleopatra is the baddie, is Octavian / Augustus's version of history.